This is Art Television.
Coming up, State of Business, sponsored by
IWS Aviation.
A very good evening and a very warm welcome to State of Business on Art Television. I'm Savindri Jayawardena. Let's look at the top stories for the day. Government updates rules and regulations to suit modern trends. Manufacturing activity continues to deteriorate. News in detail. The Cabinet of Ministers at its meeting on Monday has approved the final draft of a new Central Bank Act to be published in the Government Gazette and presented to Parliament. This was revealed by Cabinet spokesperson Dr. Bandula Gunawardena during the recent Cabinet decisions media briefing. According to spokesperson Gunawardena, the new legislation will vest more powers to the central bank in terms of the monetary policy and will allow it to operate as an autonomous organization. The proposal to this effect, submitted by President Ranil Wickremesinghe in his capacity as the Minister of Finance, Economic Stabilization and National Policies, was approved by the Cabinet of Ministers. Gunawardena also acknowledged that the proposed law was a result of the influence the government had from the International Monetary Fund and several other international organizations. The measure aims to bring in financial discipline and put the economy back on the right track. The IMF, in its staff-level agreement on the $2.9 billion extended fund facility arrangement for Sri Lanka, said restoring price stability allows pursuing a flexible inflation targeting regime. This was to be achieved through data-driven monetary policy action, fiscal consolidation, phasing out money financing, and stronger central bank autonomy. A new Central Bank Act is the cornerstone of this strategy, according to the IMF. Although the Central Bank of Sri Lanka draft bill was published in the Government Gazette on the 1st of November 2019 and tabled in the Parliament for approval, it was not included in the order book. Therefore, on the 19th of December 2022, a new draft bill with amendments for the preparation of the Act was approved by the Cabinet of Ministers. The government recently said that the free trade agreement with Thailand will be inked within the first quarter of the year. It is expected to boost exports from the country threefold in $1.5 billion. Spokesperson for the Cabinet of Ministers Dr. Bandula Gunawardena during the recent Cabinet decisions media briefing stressed the significance of free trade agreements. Gunawardena identifies the lack of free trade agreements with countries as one of the key reasons why we have not been able to boost our exports over time. The objective of the government is to boost exports from $550 million to $1.5 billion via the Sri Lanka-Thailand Free Trade Agreement. The move came following the third round of discussions held early last month, where a Thai negotiations delegation held talks with Sri Lankan officials. Spokesperson Gunawardena also said President Ranil Wickremesinghe briefed the Cabinet of Ministers on Monday on the progress of the discussions between the two countries. This included the deal with trade in goods and services, investment rules, customs cooperation, trade facilitation and economic cooperation. Inking the free trade agreement with Thailand is the first step to joining the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership Trade Agreement. It also strengthens traditional ties with the country. Given the current economic crisis, spokesperson Dr. Gunawardena said this FTA would help the country embrace internationalization as the basis for growth. This allows exporters to find new opportunities in the diverse foreign markets. Sri Lanka and Thailand initiated the proposal in 2016. The negotiations commenced in 2018 with 2 rounds of discussions during the same year, while the third round concluded in January 2023. In the meantime, Minister of Justice, Prison Affairs and Constitutional Reforms, Dr. Vijaydas Rajapaksa has appointed an expert committee to amend exchange ordinance bills to suit present-day requirements. The committee will be headed by President's Counsel Nihal Jayawardena. The move came in after considering the frauds, irregularities and oversight that occur via check transactions and the difficulties faced by the business community and public. Holding a special meeting, Dr. Rajapaksa recently noted that it is an urgent requirement to amend this act to suit the present-day scenario. This is required as the general public, business community, banks and financial institutions are facing great inconveniences due to fraud and irregularities during the check transactions. The new legislation will be drafted after studying legislation in Singapore, India and other countries. The existing exchange ordinance is 95 years old and was prepared in 1927. The expert committee is to prepare a report on the manner in which the law is to be amended within a period of 2 weeks by studying existing domestic and international legal conditions. Meanwhile, the Cabinet of Ministers approved the formation of a new excise bill to replace the country's draconian excise ordinance at its meeting on Monday. The excise ordinance was put into effect in 1912 to control the use of alcohol, tobacco and related companies, issue suitable permits and impose taxes. Through the interim budget 2022, a proposal to develop a new excise bill was made, and now that the Cabinet has given its approval, and the legal draftsman has been instructed to start preparing the new bill. The proposal to this effect was submitted by President Ranil Wickremesinghe as the Minister of Finance, Economic Stabilization and National Policy. Stay tuned, we'll be right back after a short commercial break. Welcome back after the break. The Purchasing Managers Index compiled by the Central Bank of Sri Lanka indicates that in January 2023, the manufacturing activities continued to deteriorate. The manufacturing PMI recorded an index value of 40.8 in January, a decline of 4 index points from the previous month. The manufacturing PMI signals a continued setback in manufacturing activities on a month-on-month basis in January 2023. This decline in the manufacturing PMI index value has been attributed to decreases in all the sub-indices except suppliers' delivery time. The decline in new orders and production was mainly attributable to the subdued demand condition observed, particularly in the manufacture of food and beverages and textiles and wearing apparel sectors. Many respondents involved in the manufacture of food and beverages mentioned that they experienced a notable decline in demand. This has been mainly attributed to the deteriorating purchasing power of consumers. This is in addition to the seasonal drop in demand following the December festival. Export-oriented manufacturers such as those in the textiles and the wearing apparel sector observed that export demand remains subdued. This is amidst a slowdown in major export destination economies, forcing them to run factories significantly below the full capacity. Meanwhile, employment and stock of purchases will also decline in line with the decline in new orders and production. It has been highlighted that many have intentionally reduced material purchases with the inventory buildup. Further, supplies delivery time lengthened in January 2023 compared to the previous month on a month-on-month basis. For the next 3 months, expectations of manufacturing activities indicated an improvement, anticipating an increase in demand during the upcoming festive season despite the decline in disposable income. The central bank also reports the Purchasing Managers Index for the services sector remains slightly expanded. The services PMI recorded an index value of 50.2 in January 2023, remaining slightly above the threshold level. This was underpinned by the improvements observed in new businesses, business activities and expectations for activity. New businesses improved at a faster pace in January 2023 compared to December 2022, particularly with the increases observed in financial services, education and real estate subsectors. Business activities in the services sector continued to increase at a slower pace in January 2023. Accordingly, financial services, education and telecommunications subsectors showed improvements during the month. Further, in line with the increase in tourist arrivals, there was some improvements in business activities related to other personal activities and accommodation, food and beverages subsectors. However, business activities related to wholesale and retail trade subsector continue to deteriorate amid off-season and reduced purchasing power of consumers. Furthermore, transportation subsector also declined due to decrease in freight volumes, particularly related to textiles and wearing apparel sector. Employment declined in January at a faster pace due to resignations, migrations and retirements occurred during the month. Backlogs of work also decreased at a faster pace during the month. For the next 3 months, expectations for business activities continue to improve amid upcoming festive season. Positive sentiments on improvements in the economic conditions also lifted the expectations further. Nevertheless, reduced purchasing power along with new tax structure and a proposed electricity rate hike were mentioned by some respondents as detrimental towards their future activities. The International Monetary Fund has stated that officials from China, India, Saudi Arabia and G7 nations will participate in the first virtual meeting of a new sovereign debt roundtable tomorrow. The roundtable will also include officials from countries that have requested debt treatments under Group of 20 Common Framework. Officials from middle-income countries such as Sri Lanka, Suriname and Ecuador will also be participating in this meeting. The meeting will be co-chaired by the IMF, World Bank and India, who is the current leader of the G20, and this comes a week before G20 finance officials are due to gather in India from February 23rd to 25th. An in-person meeting of the roundtable expected on February 25th and a formal launch is planned at the IMF World Bank spring meetings in April. Brazil, which will lead the G20 next year, will also take part. An IMF spokesperson confirmed that the objective is to bring together key stakeholders involved in sovereign debt restructuring, from traditional creditors from advanced economies to new creditors like China, Saudi Arabia and India. The roundtable will include the Paris Club of Official Creditors and private sector participants, the Institute of International Finance, the International Capital Markets Association, and 2 other private sector financial institutions. Creation of the body comes amid growing frustration about the slow pace of discussions on debt relief from Zambia, which first requested help 2 years ago. Organizers say the roundtable could help resolve issues in principle and will not focus on Zambia or other individual cases. Officials hope to resolve China's concerns about cut-off dates to protect new financing from debt restructuring by the end of the year. Also on the agenda will be China's repeated calls for World Bank and other multinational development banks to participate in debt reductions. This proposal is firmly rejected by US officials who argue that those lenders already offer highly concessional loans and grants to countries in crisis. Stay tuned for stock updates.
IWS Aviation.
Welcome back after the break. Trading at Colombo Stock Exchange ended on a positive note today. The all share price index gained 214.47 points to close at 8,843.05, and the S&P SL 20 gained 73.57 points to close at 2,718.31. The turnover was 2 billion rupees and over 94 million shares were traded. Up next are forex rates. That's all news for today. Follow our social media platforms to be updated on the latest news. With that, we'll be signing out for today. Take care and good night.
State of Business was sponsored by
IWS